Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cyber Inspiration Podcast. My name is Evgeny. I have been around cybersecurity for the last 20 years and I have a lot of experience working with a variety of cybersecurity vendors. My main work is vendor consulting and cybersecurity advisory for companies. As part of my passion in technology and cyber, I've been intrigued to learn how a company starts. I started the podcast to understand the thinking process and what motivated people to start their own company. This podcast is affiliated with Security Architecture Podcast.
Have Jaap here to talk about his company and their motivation and inspiration to start the company. Jaap, can you please introduce yourself and the company?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. So my name is Jaap. I live in Alberta, Canada. I work for a company called Data and More, and we focus on the one thing that nobody is able to do properly, and that is the identification, classification, and management of data.
This particular topic is very important. We're talking about DLP for decades, for a very long time. And every time you mention someone, let's do a DLP project, they decide to maybe I'm going to have another baby and not do a DLP project because it's much easier. And we know it's not about the technology, it's about the process and technology and people and many different things. But we also talk that data is the new currency in the future as well, because we understand who has the data, have quite a lot of power. Every breach pretty much in the industry right now is related to data about your records and many different things. And it's not just cyber, there's legal problems there as well. We have issues with medical records and who had access to medical records and many different things. So I'm happy we're talking about this part. We're not going to dive in a lot into the technology, but we are going to dive in about the company, how you guys do stuff and how you guys operate. So before we go there, tell me what inspired the owners and you guys to actually start the company.
So most of the owners, they have a lot of Microsoft experience or background. So myself, for example, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. I worked on the side of infrastructure. I worked on the sides of search, or in other words, the ability to be able to centralize data forms and processes, the dream of SharePoint, or back in the days, WSS, and then SharePoint 03, MAS, and everything else. I worked on the side of services, display portals like intranets, extranets, and it's very easy to come to the reality is that when you're doing a backup and recovery, what are you backing up and recovering? When you do search and the ability to centralize data, what are you trying to do? Well, you're trying to map location 1 to location 2 to a user. So you're building all kinds of correlations and angles and triangles to make sure that the right data is accessible by the right people. When you're building intranet, you're building effectively display portals. So you're trying to get that liquid gold in your company and try to utilize it. How do we make sure that when I go to an intranet that I can see all my forms or have all my templates? How do we make sure to do all of those things? And the reality is that for the last 20 years, I haven't met a single company that knows what kind of data they have. So the founders about 8-9 years ago, they were like, there's literally nothing out here that is able to do these things. We keep following trends, and AI is one of those very important focus points right now, for example, but so is DLP. When you have data loss prevention, how can you have DLP without knowing what kind of data you have? When you have data security, what are you protecting? And your personal example of what about a data breach? It gets very problematic because then you have to call 10, 20 guys and they all want to spend their hours on you. And you have to then start to figure out, okay, what kind of data do I have? What is potentially accessed? Then you have to analyze it and you have to be like, okay, now what is the impact of it? So going back to founders, they realized like, okay, this is very important. This is going to be crucial. And we need a strong foundation. If we don't have that foundation, we don't have a vision, then we're not able to grow. And there's many stats on one side, on the other side, where you're talking about compliance, governance, AI, whatever you want to go to, whatever area you're trying to go into. If you don't have proper data classification, if you're not able to identify your data, you're going to really struggle. So our focus is more on the foundational point of view. We do a tremendous amount of stuff with compliance, but that's just because the nature of the beast. We were born and raised in Europe. We have European founders, to Denmark to be exact. We did automatically roll into compliance quite a bit. But at its core, its foundation, we're trying to do that one thing that everybody needs, but nobody has. That was one of the biggest motivations for us to start tackling this 8-9 years ago.
Thank you. So what happened after? The company decided to start the company. Did they start hiring people to do consulting? Did they say, okay, let's go build a product? Because when you go in DLP and get classification, it's not always about the product. It's about process as well. So what was the next step?
You start with a product, right? Because that's what you have. You're trying to identify a gap in the market and okay, we're going to fill that gap. And then when you start doing some projects, organization come to you like, hey, can you also, and then you get some correlation between additional features or anything else. So I think it's important. And one of the things we did is to remember where we come from and to remember what we're trying to do. So don't be afraid to say no to feature requests and say no to really make sure that you do the one thing that you're trying to do and make sure you do that one thing really well. Too many times companies will just focus on the money with services and then they spend all their resources on all kinds of stuff that is not filling the main request or the main value point that you're trying to achieve. And it can be a really daunting task because at one hand, somebody is dangling a bag of money in front of you, but on the other hand, is how am I going to grow in the future? So we did a bit of both, of course. If we have feature requests that is enhancing the direction in which we chose to go, then we will be very interested in doing so. And of course, there's always new legislation, there's new elements of legislation that will come up. So we are automatically updating the software and everything else. But we were very clearly focused on a vision. There's a saying in a famous book that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And it's the same with running a business. If you forget your vision, or if you have a terrible vision, like we just need to make money, if that is the sole purpose of your focus, then you are going to run into troubles eventually. So our focus, okay, we want to be data compliance, data privacy. And for the very first few years, that's been their focus, looking at the market in Europe and the gap they're trying to fill. And on that, they built their market. So we've grown it to the point now where it's a really robust engine. And so now what we're seeing actually is that additional value for customers, they lie in security, they lie in data governance, they are with data breaches, they are with getting ready for AI and these type of elements. For several years now, we've ensured that we have a very solid engine, that we're meeting all the marks of the foundation and also the vision of where we're trying to go. Now we're able to accept more feature requests and to focus more on different elements, but still data. We're not leaving data.
So did they hire people or did they went to raise money to build a product? What was the process?
So we did a little bit of both. We started by using an agency through which we employed people in HR and developers and these type of things, which from a scalability point of view has been a fantastic choice. Then slowly we've also started to adapt and to hire some local people. And now as we're expanding, so my job is completely focused on North America, for example. So as we're expanding, I'm hiring local contractors, people that I've known for a while, and that's been our focus, our growth. So we occasionally use contractors and agencies, but we mainly, at this moment in time, we are making a slight shift where we are now focused on quality is not the right word, but we want to focus on people that are purely focused on data more, whether it's on the employee side of things or contract, whatever they prefer to grow our business.
This is an interesting, not segue, but I want to go deeper here.
Sure.
Let's talk about people and let's talk about the company culture. You mentioned
Yes.
that you want people that care about the brand. Did you guys actually thinking about what is our company culture? What type of people we want? What they need to have to be able to call this is my home or this is what I like to do?
We have, and we've been very fortunate that it's been organically grown, mainly because the four founders were all people that have known each other for a long time, even before they started the company. And so it's a European, Danish grown company. So what you get in the company is you get a very different type of culture than what most North American organizations will have. There's a very direct form of communication, very strong motivation to call each other out in a nice way. But when something doesn't go the way that it should go, the Dutch and as well as Danish culture, they are fairly confrontational. It's seen as a form of respect because the higher purpose is to make a customer happy and is not to talk about feelings as much as it would be here in a Canadian or an American company. So in our culture, feelings are less important than the ultimate goal, which has to be to make a customer happy. So when we run our projects, we can be very honest with each other, respectful, don't get me wrong, very respectful, but it has to be the most important thing in our culture, has to be to make customers happy. Because when you take care of your customers and we take care of your partners, they eventually will end up taking care of yourselves. And then from a management point of view, of course, it's our job to enable people in the organization and to make sure they have all the tools, make sure they're happy. But that's more of a side project. The culture I would definitely describe as North European, very direct, very forgiving. What I mean with that is it's the absolute opposite of micromanagement, where you're giving a lot of responsibility. And for that reason, for example, I choose only to hire people that have been in the business for a long time. There will be a time and a place where I'll be looking at SDRs, for example, and junior people and everything else. But at this moment in time, we're still, even in North America, we're still building that foundation. So the choice that I've made is to choose people that are better, more senior, and sometimes make more money than I do. But they're going to be able to tell me what we need to be doing, what we need to be changing. And it's very good to build a teamwork. And as long as you hire people with where their egos aren't too big and you can focus on the common ground, the common goal, then you can have a lot of fun together and there's not a lot of drama. Me personally, I just have a complete allergy for drama. I just can't deal with it. So to counteract that, to ensure that everything works, we just hire good people and pay them well.
So in this case, how do you deal with task management? You have a company that's oriented to help customers. By the end of the day, there's different customers, everybody wants something, but you also need to produce code. You need to move the company forward, you need to make money. If there's no money in the company, you're not able to help customers in the long run. How you prioritize tasks? Is there the mechanisms? Is there different applications you use to help you in this task?
We have different applications and different teams. They all seem to, at this moment, communicate differently. So the dev guys, they like to use Slack and they like to communicate in that. The Danish guys, they use Viber, mainly for communication and anything else. So when it comes down to task, it's mainly top driven. But again, you're given a lot of freedom. So when I talk to my technical guys here in North America, the question is more, okay, I want to build or extend or expand a partner portal, or I want something like a demo environment. And I will tell them, okay, here's my requirements, here's my goals, here's my scenarios. Eventually, this is what I'm trying to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are small enough as an organization where they effectively can say, okay, if you want to achieve that, let me give you my 5 cents. I listen. And then together we come up with a plan. When it comes down to the task, it's mainly the organizational side of things, mainly what we have. We have people on the business development side of things, partner side of things, management side of things. We have one person in HR, and the rest are effectively developers. So we're not big enough. We have about somewhere between 30, 35 people in the organization. So we can still manage a lot of things on a personal side of things. So we're not big enough where we need a whole task platform to keep everything up to date and everything else. So mainly it's done through conversation. And then when stuff gets implemented, the team will communicate on it and set goals, timeframes, timelines.
You guys been around for some time, and sometimes when you start a company with a vision, this vision not always translates later on to the end product. And I'm wondering what happened in the past when like a crystal picture. Okay, we are going to where we were thinking, or maybe we're deviating. It could be a very big customer win. It could be something else. Tell me this, like what happened in the company that you knew you are striding to the correct location and goal?
Yeah. So when you start building, you make decisions based on what's available then, right? Whether it's information, technology, platform, people, it's a combination of what's currently there. What we found is that certain types of technology became easier and better to do classification with. We ended up switching several years ago between of the foundation that we use to a different element. So we had to re-implement a tremendous amount of our classifications. So remember, our core is the classification of data, right? So we need to find any form of personal identifiable information, healthcare information, sensitive data. And what we've done is several years ago, we had probably about 9 million rules and anti-rules to accurately define what is, and maybe even more importantly, what isn't sensitive data. And what we found is there's new technology out there as a foundational point of view. And so we switched a lot of the way that we do things onto a new form of technology. And what this did is it helped us to grow, but you do have to take a few steps back and really make a conscious decision of where do we want to be? How is this meeting our goals? And then if the answer is we want to go into the same direction but use a different way, so instead of using a step, we're now going to start using a bicycle, then you do have to recalibrate things and everything else. So we did that. At that time, it took several months to actually retranslate and re-implement a whole bunch of things. But now, because we made those changes, we're now able to use AI and everything else. So now we're up to over 30 million of definitions in roughly 28 different languages. So for us to stand still about 3.5 years ago and have a moment of, okay, how is this going to impact and enable our vision to grow better, faster, cheaper, effectively? Are we willing to make that investment right now to support our goal in the long run and basically have more options going down the line if we make that investment right now? We did that and we've never looked back. There's been no issues, no problems, and we're still thankful that we did that.
As somebody that's building the business here in North America, you have to do
Yep.
everything, being the technology guy, being the salesperson. But in one point, you will have to let go and let
Yes.
somebody else sell the baby, make sure the baby is okay. Tell me about this process. How do you trust someone? How do you guide someone where you can kind of step back and let somebody else do the work and you still oversee it?
Yes. The first step is setting up the business. Again, you're dealing with technology, people, strategy, and everything else. The strategy that I implemented, and that's something that I like to do everywhere, is a partner-focused strategy. Effectively, I started here as a lone wolf in North America with nothing but the technology and a European website. And I started talking to my existing network. And the theory is that if I can support and help a partner, then that partner will introduce me to 5, 10 customers. So from a scalability point of view, my reasoning was is like I can either try to call 100 companies or I can work with 3 partners and they will use their and leverage their existing network to be able to utilize this. So what we've done is set up a very generous conversation model. And that was interesting enough for partners to be like, okay, let's at least have a look at this, right? Let's at least have a conversation about it and we'll see if we can figure this out. And now to the point where we have some really good partners, because even with partners, even with employees, even with people, sometimes you have to kiss a few frogs to marry Prince, right? So it's same in your career. You're gonna have some crappy jobs and you're gonna have some good jobs, and some if you're lucky enough, like me, and you're gonna find yourself having just a lot of fun doing what you really enjoy, and take some time as well to learn what you're good at. So now that we've done that, the first thing that I then had to do is, hey, we're closing all these projects. We need to support them. And of course, partners will support projects, but you need local people in the same time zones. You need good quality people to be able to support your partners. So the first thing we did was to hire on the technical side. So we've done that. We started implementing, and then we were able to scale more. So then the next question is, okay, so how do we then do even more? So then we started hiring lead gen marketing companies. Again, you have to kiss a few frogs. When you have VP of sales in your title on LinkedIn, you get about 3 to 10 outreaches at least a day, and everybody knows everything. So you go through that. And we found some companies via recommendations. So we're very happy working with them. And so now we're able to grow, and we're on that verge of closing a fair amount of fairly large organizations. So then the next step is we might actually have to hire another technical person to be able to deal with that. When we do that, then we'll probably want to invest a bit in marketing and eventually hire some local sales guys. What are the markets for us? What are the geographical locations? What makes sense? I'm in Canada, so we'll have an incorporation here in Canada. Does that mean that we have to hire in Canada? No, it doesn't. But that we do have a lot of customers in Toronto. There's a lot of things happening in Quebec right now because of legislation with Law 25. There's a lot of stuff happening with Law 26 in cybersecurity. And there's Law 27 coming up where all of Canada will be looking at very strict compliance laws for every company. So that is one consideration. Other things that we have is that we're getting a lot of traction in California with CPA. Texas is booming, absolutely going crazy in all kinds of areas. But they also have a new Privacy Security Act, which went live this July. Then there's also Florida and other elements. So then we're starting to make some investments in different areas. And some of it might be where you partner up with a company or an investment firm or something else, where it's kind of like, okay, let's look at what we have, where we need to be. you're asking for, I don't know, 20, 50, $100,000. What are you getting back in return? When it comes down to your question of, is it hard for me to let go? Actually, no, it's very easy. But the only reason that it's easy, because I am a bit of a control freak, but the only reason it's easy is the fact that I have a lot of confidence in the people I hire. Like I do enjoy hiring people that are smarter than me, that are better than me in the areas that we hire them for. So then when I have a very technical project and I hand that over to a technical person, I feel like encouraged. I feel happy. And I enjoy being that escalation point instead of the I need to attend every meeting kind of conversation.
You can go back to the beginning of the company. Is there anything you guys will do differently?
Of course. We were looking at all kinds of investments firms, and there were a few in Central Europe, specifically Germany and other locations, that were looking to invest a lot of money into us. And we were 1 week away from signing some very large deals. And that week was also the week that Russia decided to share their ideology with Ukraine, which means that every form of investment just went down. And as they say, hindsight is 2020, right? So knowing what we know now, we could have done things very differently. But at the time, we chose to be frugal, to make sure that we stick to what we have. We don't make unnecessary risk. We're making sure that we're growing in the right areas and that the company would be fine no matter what would happen. That was the goal. Looking back, I wish we would have just taken a loan of a few million, spent 250,000 on marketing, and grow the business that way. And we did that a few years later, which is just the way it was. I can't even say that it was a bad decision. You always have to make a risk analysis of what are you doing and is it worth it? Because the last thing you want as a growing company to start blowing $1 million here or there. We're not big enough to do that stuff. And so it's always a risk analysis, but eventually you have to invest to get some. You have to get your name out where you have to build that brand. So people are like, oh, we have data breach. We need to call data more, right? At least they need to be aware like you exist. Oh, we're doing AI. We're budgeting a lot of money right now. Maybe we should look at the most important part and get data ready. Hey, there's a company called Data More that does all that, right? So the brand awareness for us, I wish we would have started that sooner. But it's also a luxurious problem. It could have gone the other way too, where we had very little money. We didn't sign up as many customers as we did. That could have happened. And then we would have been in a very different situation. I might not be working for Data More. So would we have done things differently? I'm not sure. If I didn't know what we know now, we might not have made much different decisions. But I don't mind taking risks either. I'm a bit of a risk taker. The company owners, they're much more sensible than I am. So they make sure that things go well.
Let's talk about you. Do you believe
Sure.
in work-life balance?
I think so. I'm a millennial, right? So I was born in '83. So I'm part of a generation where if we wanted to hang out, we would meet up with a bunch of people. We would, in the Netherlands, we cycle everywhere. That's where I was born and raised. So you would cycle to some places, we would hang out, we would do some funky stuff, and we would have a great time. Now I'm a dad, right? I've got 4 girls. They're all young. They're 3, 5, 6, and 8. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, where there is no vision, the people perish. So for me, a job is not my goal. Like I don't live to work. For me, my life is not defined by a job title. When I'm 60 years old, I'm not gonna be that guy to be like, oh, I'm a owner, CEO, VP, C, whatever. I don't find that very important. For me, it's important to have fun, have a good goal, live my life, provide for my family, and everything else. So I'm horrendously always available, which is a terrible habit. That's me. But at the same time, I do take a lot of time off, especially in the summer, to go camping with my girls, to have fun, etc. When one of my guys calls me, and that happens, right? Oh, this happened, something went wrong, my wife needs help, or this or that. I always say the same thing: family comes first. There is no job to me in the world unless when you're the Secret Service of Donald Trump, maybe that's more important right now than me making my 9 to 5 hours. But generally speaking, for people in my field in IT, it's not more important than anything else. And so I find it very important. My job and my boss, they also give me a lot of freedom. So I do a fair bit of traveling to events, and I'll leave on Sunday and I'll come home. I leave early and I'll come home late. But at the same time, if I want to use some of my time to go fishing, go to the playground, have time with my kids or anything else, there's lots of options to do, which also enables me to go to my kids, my piano plays, rehearsals. I don't want to be that It's just going to miss out. There's that one song, and the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. It's such a painful song where it's about a dad that his whole life tells his children later. And then the kids grow up, and suddenly dad realizes, I missed out. So then he wants to make up, and he's, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And then the kids go, later, I'm busy. I don't have time because you've literally trained your children that they're not most important to me. So work-life balance, I would say, is extremely important and one of the most important perks of my current job. That's why I enjoy working with companies for less than 100 people, because it gives a lot of flexibility. If you do what's expected of you and you outperform everyone else in the team, there's a lot of flexibility and that you can focus on the things that matters. And to me, that is my family, that is my church, that is my other things. My job is not my goal, but I do believe in, if you do a job, you should do it really well.
Agree. Agree. Yeah. Thank you very much. I
Sure.
learned a lot. I love your view on work. I love your view on life and the balance. We work hard, we play hard, we enjoy the life as well. We don't have to work only hard and be miserable. We can work hard and be
No,
happy as well. And we can find humor and we can help each other and we can enjoy the process. So thank you very much for joining, telling about your story, your journey at the company as well.
it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.